is Lindy Cowling. Welcome to my channel. My website is www.lindycowling.co.uk. Email is info@lindycowling.co.uk. And the title of today's video is The Children of Soul Connections. The Children of Soul Connections. So, as any of you are aware that have watched any of my videos before, this is an experiential channel, which means I talk about things that I'm experiencing, that I'm going through, or that I've gone through, that I've evolved through, that I've had direct experience of, or that I have been working with my clients on. So it's always through direct experience. That is the way I prefer to work, that is the way I prefer to share, and I do feel that's part of what I do. It's the anchoring and grounding by living experience of it, the experiential side of it. So, the children of soul connections and templating thereof. So it's become into my awareness, it's become quite clear to me in the last couple of months that the children, the generation of the young, are very much templated with the state of energy, with the state of vibration, with the state of frequency, and the state of templating in consciousness of their parents. So this title of this video is The Children of Soul Connections and the Templating thereof, but this actually, I'm going to apply it to soul connections because that's the arena I work in a lot of the time. But to be honest, that applies to anybody's children and any parents and all parents that are going through a state of evolution on this planet. So in regards to soul connections, I'll give you an example. You can have 3 children in a family under the age of, say, a random example, under the age of 13, 14. The oldest is 13, 14, the youngest is probably about 6 or 7. And according to the state of consciousness of the parents, the soulmates, the ascensionary soulmates, the twin flames, old school connections, new school connections, catalysts, whatever, according to the actual state of vibration and frequency and consciousness, inner consciousness of the parents, depends and has an effect on the consciousness handed down to the children, carried forward by the children, and the children, it affects what template they're being sorted out into. So it's a bit like it's like being a bit at school, and they're saying, right, you're in group A, you're in group B, you're in group A, you're in group B, and it's almost like the sorting hat in Harry Potter. So you can have 3 children. The example I'm using, 3 children in a family. One of them, for purpose of example here, the youngest one, of the new template, already come in as the new template, the new energy. The other 2, depending on their state of consciousness, but also depending on the state of consciousness of the mother and the father, the parents, or the step parents, not just necessarily the genetic parents, the person in the role of caregiver or parents full-time, or most of the time. This can be handed down. That state of vibration and frequency can be handed down, quite similar to epigenetically, really. It can be handed down, and so you can have, in that example, 1 child born in the new energy, 2 children, because of the state of consciousness or the bloodline they were born in, the state of consciousness of the father and the mother in that example means that the two children slightly older are of the old template as a direct consequence of the decisions that the mother and father made during the children's lives up to now. So it's an extraordinary thing, and it's an extraordinary level of responsibility in a way that people don't realise that they have. They've looked at the linear perspective of genetically handing things down to children, and the nature versus nurture, you know, children learning by you modelling particular characteristics or particular behaviour. But people haven't realised that you also can hand down the templating. It's almost on an epigenetic level, so the emotional level is involved in it as well, the spiritual level, the mental level, the soul stuff, everything's all mixed in. But for me, I only speak on this channel about things that I am experiencing. So for me, I've been aware of this since 2011 and saw it in my own connection that I was with, Twin Flame Union. But I've actually seen it up close and personal in many other clients now that have children. And I've seen it up close and personal as well, you know, how it plays out with my own children, and I know how it's played out with my connections children. Now, I did have an inkling of how that was going to play out, according to what way the expression of the soul on that side of the fence was going to go. But now for me, in some ways, it's been proven to myself through the work I'm doing and the people I'm working with. So you could say to me, well, so what you're saying, Lindy, is you can have a family of 5, family of 6, family of 4, or a couple of people, and you can have one child that's templated with a new energy. They were born, they came in wired as the new energy. Or you can have one child that's 2 children that are not of the new energy. Or you can have one child new energy, one child old energy, or other words for that, old template, new template. So the next thing I want to say is, what does that mean? Actually, before I go on to what that means, what I am going to say is the people I've been working with, this is very prevalent, have been involved in quite big awakening processes like catalysts, soul connections, twin flame union, that kind of thing. And some of it was unfolding anyway before they even connected as twin flames, but there does seem to be a direct correlation between the actions of the soul connection involved when it's at that level and the templating they're handing down to family and bloodlines. When you think about it, actually it makes complete common sense, doesn't it? This has been something we've been talking about for years now, quite a few years, about the bloodlines and the family and the effects that these connections have on them, positively or, you know, it not moving forward the way it could. So it's really interesting. And another side offshoot to this is many connections on a soul level, soul connections, have a very close affinity to one child in particular. And it's really interesting how it's nearly always only one child. I've seen it all over the world. I've experienced it up close and personal, really up close and personal too. And it seems to play out that one child connected with that dynamic, the soul dynamic, is already, it's almost as if the child is a child of the union. Regardless of who the birth mother was, it's like the child is a child of the union. And I definitely experienced that. My connection definitely experienced that. I have now seen it over the last couple of years all over the world in small minorities, but still it's happening, and it's always one child, and they always know which the child is, and they always know that there's a different, and they're of the new template. So it's really, really interesting. It's almost as if etherically that it is already by design, divine design really, that child is wired into that template with all of that potential. You could say to me, well, why not all the children, all the family? I honestly, hand on heart, don't know why it seems to be one. Maybe it's a natural state of evolution on this planet. Maybe because there's a small minority of people stepping into new energy at the moment. Maybe they're kind of like way showers, if you like, part of that template. And maybe it will become more prevalent as time goes on, and it won't be just one child. But you could say to me, well, what comes next then? So if you've got one child old template, one new, or 2 kids old template, one new, or you know, 5 kids old template, one new, what happens here? And really, what it is that the children that I've got the old templating on them, they still have massive opportunities to work their way through life's experience and life's journey to come into the new energy. But what happens is, in some ways, they've got to do it the old way, like we did it the old way. They're going to have to go the long way round, if you know what I mean. Doesn't mean to say they can't get into new energy. Of course they can. You know, they're highly likely to, well, according to their life's choices, they've got a very good chance of getting into the new energy. But they're going to have to go the long way round through life's experience and actual spiritual evolution. Whereas they, in some ways, could have, some are born into the new template anyway, but via the soul connections, things are speeded up like a catalyst effect. So if the soul connection is on track and in integrity and in some ways has gone the right way, it seems to be easier for the other members of the family unit, shall we say, the children, to get on that path of divinity and that fast track to who they truly are easier. It doesn't mean to say it won't happen. It means they've got to go the old way round, really, the conventional way round. Now, whether that changes will be really interesting. I haven't met anyone so far where all children in the family are all of new energy. I haven't seen it. In this level of connections, soul connections, that level of connection there, I'm seeing it always play out the same way. It always seems to be one child that's capable of carrying that frequency or has already come in with that frequency. Others, as time goes on, can almost like evolve into it and come into it according to their life's choices. Where the I can't say it's a tragedy, but where it can be quite frustration really is if soul connections realise this, and twin flames realise this, catalysts realise this, ascensionary soulmates realise this, all the different names realise this of these connections. And that added responsibility, it may change the consequence of their actions, because some of those connections, they sell themselves short. They take a deep breath and say, for the sake of the family, I'm going to go against what I know in my heart to be true. I'm going to lock it down, and I'm going to do the self-sacrifice bits because I'm doing the best for my family. And what many of them don't realise is they're not looking at it on a high enough or deep enough level. Is it the best for their family if they're living a lie 24 hours a day? And that's being handed down to their children, much more so in a connection like that than it would be in a conventional dynamic. Do you see what I mean? They're handing down that frequency, and then their children have got almost like combat against that. They've got to kind of overcome that. Whereas it's something that they wouldn't have had to overcome. It's on such an exaggerated, intensified level that everybody in connection and around these soul connections is affected perhaps far more than we realised. And so if you have a situation where, and there's no judgment here, I'm talking in frequency and vibration and truth. If you have a situation where a couple is putting on a brave front to the world that they have, 2.4 children or 3 children and a dog, and they're running around very happily and all is wonderful. but underneath the surface the husband has affairs or has been in a long-term relationship for about 4 years with somebody else, but on the surface plays out the persona of being the perfect husband, the perfect family, and the wife knows about this and also puts on the front and persona. One can only imagine what they're handing down to the children of the old template. The one of the new template, in the example I'm using, in some ways already is of the new template, so is quite angelic, already sees all that is, and in some ways cannot be contaminated, cannot have the frequency dropped, because they already come in wired 100% of the new energy. But the others in the family that weren't wired that way, that had the opportunity to have an easier route, that's now been denied them by the action of the parents, and they're going to have to go the long way round, and they may not get into the new template according to the decisions, according what they're up against. They may not get into it. This, again, the consequence of the actions of the parents, that free will thing. But also, in that circumstance, because this is the energy, the heart is the energy of the truth, divine truth, living one's truth. That what they're actually doing is living an illusion, And maybe 10 or 20 years ago, people could get away with that. But now people can't get away with it. It's excruciating. And they don't realise the consequences on a soul level, on a spiritual level, and the repercussions of that, along the line and along this timeline, not just for them, but we're talking about the children. So it is an immense responsibility, and really the bottom line here is, if you're living a lie to yourself, you are handing that vibration, that frequency, that down epigenetically to your children. If they are children of the new energy, actually that won't affect them, because they're already squeaky clean, newborn, uncontaminated. They don't take it on. They're not on a karmic play out. It won't affect them in the same way. But for the other children in that family, it's a whole different ball game. It's like handing down an illness or a disease that you had an opportunity not to hand down. That sounds really brutal, but that really is the way that it's playing out. And I had some semblances of this understanding back in 2011, and I remember voicing them at the time, but I now have much more understanding of it because I've seen it play out across the world. I've seen it play out up close and personal. And it's an extraordinary thing. So on the negative side of it, you can be giving your children, it's like tying one arm and one leg behind their back by not being who you truly are and modelling that, vibrating at that. But on the positive side of it, if you do step into your divinity, if you do step into your heart, if you do choose that route, then of course you give your children that opportunity as well. And if they're already templated with the old template, yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a harder slog for them to get into the new energy. It's going to be slower, not impossible. Some won't make it into the new energy, but some of them will. Some definitely will. But it's like a golden opportunity here. There is most definitely a profound effect upon the children directly involved in twin flame union, soul connections, soulmate connections, ascensionary soulmates, all of this mix, all the names that we can give them, soul connections. There is most definitely a profound effect upon them. Whether those children were born physically born, from the soulmates, from the twin flames, from the catalysts, or brought in by a wife on either side, a partner on either side, a girlfriend on either side. It doesn't matter, because etherically and spiritually, the children of the new energy in those connections seem to have a profound connection to that template, to the two primary partners involved, whether they're together or not, whether they've not seen each other for years, whether they're not going to come back in around each other, whether they are, makes no difference whatsoever. That is it's an extraordinary pattern to see play out. Now, if we take this out of the arena of soul connections, I'm absolutely certain that this patterning is also starting to happen across the population. So the bottom line here is whether you've met a soulmate, a twin flame, none of those things, a catalyst, any of them, whatever. The bottom line is this is starting to play out in the general public. So it is imperative, absolutely imperative, if you do not want to hand down to your children, to the offspring, much of the emotional stuff, the mental stuff, the physical stuff, the genetic stuff, the epigenetic stuff, the quantum physics side of it, the spiritual side of it, the soul side of it, the bloodline side of it, if you don't want to hand down the negative end of the spectrum of that to the children, it's all about being true to yourself. 100% true to yourself. Doing the inner stuff, facing self, which is enormously challenging, but the consequences of not facing self for yourself and for the others around you is enormous. And once doing that, you're going to make the journey not only so much and the experience so much easier for you, but so much easier for the people connected in your immediate family, like the children. Because like I said before, those of new energy are of new energy, children-wise, but those of old energy have got a longer, slower route, which you can help, in a way, help them transform that by you being a model of that vibration yourself. On that note, I will love you and leave you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. I really hope you guys are doing well. We're entering the autumn, the fall now, in an extraordinary year. So please take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I hope to see you on camera again soon. There's plenty of things I've got in mind to talk about, but I like to come on here at the time when it inspires me and I feel into what's the right one to bring out at that time. Lots of love. Bye-bye. Bye. I love you and leave you.